Hey guys, today I'm coming at you with something a little bit different. This is a coaching session I had with top tier Pokemon TCG player Zach Lesage. Zach has an impressive Pokemon TCG history, including taking first place in the 2020 Pokemon Players Cup 2. Due to some technical difficulties, the coaching was split up into two 30-minute sessions, so the tone of the coaching will change about halfway through. I also apologise for the echo. Technology was not playing nice for me. Regardless, I hope you managed to get some great advice, hints, or tips from this. Remember to leave a like and subscribe to show your support of the channel while we work to bring you great Pokemon content from all formats. Now that that's all said, let's get into it. Welcome to Zach. Thank you very much for the opportunity to have this training session with you.
Yeah, no worries at all. Thank you for the opportunity to have a session with you.
So where would you like to begin?
So based off what we were talking about, I always want to make sure that everything is clear between everyone. So you said that you were looking for some help against single prize card decks, right?
I do definitely struggle with those, yes.
Sure. So, I mean, single prize card decks, obviously, some matchups are going to be tough for any deck. So if you're playing an Eternatus deck, you could be losing against a Rapid Strike deck, and that would make sense.
Yeah.
So that's not to say that every deck can just beat single prize card decks, or that there's any trick to make it happen. But there are some tips to make the matchup better, and players might be playing the matchups differently than how other players would be playing it. So that being said, I just want to provide some pointers there. When it comes down to it, what is the deck that you've typically been playing against the single prize card Pokemon?
So most recently, I'll just bring it up. I've kind of been playing, so this is the deck that I used in the tournament yesterday.
Sure.
It is a combination of Shadow Rider and Alcremie.
Okay, cool.
So, how do I make it all on one? Hang on, I think it's
if you click on the deck, yeah, you just click on the 4 arrow thing in the middle.
That one, there we go, that's what I was looking for.
For sure. Okay, yeah, so this looks like a pretty typical Shadow Rider list based off what I've seen other people playing. So when you're playing against a single prize card deck or any deck, you kind of want to look to things that can be strong. Single prize card decks usually do a lower amount of damage. They're not going to be capped at those big damage amounts. So either using Pokemon with large amount of HP or Pokemon with a similar amount of prize cards towards those single prize card Pokemon. So if you're trading something for 3 prize cards against a deck that's trading for 1 prize card, so let's just put Malamar, the new Malamar with Rapid Strike Tentacles from Children into the equation.
Yeah, I've versed a few of those.
For sure. If you're playing against that deck and you're attacking with a Shadow Rider Calyrex VMAX, and they're able to one-shot you and you're just one-shotting them, if your damage output is the same, but your prize cards are different, of course you're always going to lose that trade-off because they're drawing 2 more prize cards per attack, so their average amount of prize cards per attack is going to be higher than yours. That's the reason why you're losing. So I think the biggest reason, beyond any just hey, my deck did not set up this game, which is a whole other problem of itself.
I
think identifying the issue is really where it's going to be coming down from. You might be you want to know what? My opponent is winning the game 2 turns quicker than me, and that's probably because your deck is feeding them too many prize cards. Or maybe you're not setting up the right Pokemon. You can do different strategies with Pokemon that are worth different prize cards. So maybe setting up a 3 prize card Pokemon, then a 2 prize card Pokemon, then a 3 prize card Pokemon, forcing your opponent to draw 8 prize cards instead of giving your opponent 3 prize cards plus 3 prize cards. So there are some ways to bridge that gap in general.
Right. So, for example, it'd be better to focus on, maybe leaving one V as a V instead of evolving it, kind of thing.
Exactly, or maybe even attacking with an Alcremie V, or throwing in something that's a little bit different. So the way that you offer up prize cards to your opponents can very much matter in any single matchup, because it's much easier to go 2-2-2 than it is to go 3-2-3 because of the HP that you get from the VMAXs, the extra 100. I'd rather knock out 3 to Dead GX than knock out 3 Shadow Riders. The difference is an extra 480 damage that I need to output. That being said, a lot of those things can be obvious. The other thing is looking for attacks that can maybe draw multiple prize cards. So one of the cool things with Shadow Rider Calyrex is that it has Astral Barrage.
Yes.
So a lot of players might not necessarily look for that attack because it's just evolving into a Rapid Strike, or sorry, not a Rapid Strike, a Shadow Rider VMAX. But Astral Barrage can actually snipe 2 Inkays off the field, going through Mew because it's damage counters instead of damage, and then you can knock out 2 Inkays because they both have 50 HP.
Yes, yeah.
So
I've noticed that 50 sometimes, like, there's really not many Pokemon left, like, that coming out anymore that actually have the 50. Inkay's kind of rare in that regards. Like, a lot of the time, like, even Sobbles and stuff, they're kind of sitting at that 60.
Yeah, the ones that just are above that threshold are tough because, of course, you don't have any extra, like, damage modifiers that can spread, such as Inteleon or anything else that can get those other damage counters. So those that are outside of the range are Pokemon that you'd probably want to be knocking out with a single, not like a single attack, like a Max Geist, or maybe even attacking with Cresselia.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you really want to be focusing in where you can be focusing in. So really, I think the general strategy is, of course, understanding the prize cards that you're giving up, understanding the prize cards that you're trying to acquire. A lot of single prize card decks, regardless of anything, are still going to be playing a copy of the Den GX, Crobats, or Choreo GX. So if you have an opportunity to take one of those out mid-game, your opponent might not be able to make a comeback. So drawing a certain amount of prize cards for attack, giving up a certain amount of prize cards per attack, looking for attacks that are either efficient at knocking out multiple Pokemon, or things that have unique effects. Even something like using Shadow Rider's first attack, the one that stops special energies in stadiums. Maybe your opponent's playing a deck that only plays special energies, so having knowledge of what's in your opponent's deck. And of course, utilizing Pokemon, like even like Cresselia could be strong in that matchup because you could knock out a single prize card with a single prize card Pokemon. If you do that first before your opponent, you're putting yourself in an edge. And identifying situations where you're able to just like overcome your opponents. Sometimes they're just sitting there with only one attacking type of Pokemon.
Yeah.
If you knock it out, they can't evolve into another one because a lot of the single prize card decks do have to evolve. So those are really like the key things that I would go into. I totally love to try out that matchup with you and really like give some tips if possible.
Yeah, I'd love that. Just off the bat, having a look at this, so would you maybe recommend adding an extra Cresselia to this deck?
So right now, I actually don't have any Cresselia in my list. My list is a little bit different. So I play only a 1/1 Alcremie VMAX line. I play a 4/4 Shadow Rider line.
Yeah, that's as much as I could afford. They're expensive cards, that's for sure.
Yeah, no, I totally get there. I just started the habit of flinging my decks.
Oh.
And in the past week, I've gone through, I think, 1,200 packs.
Yeah.
So
I'm hanging out for that Golden Quick Ball, that code that's coming out next week.
Oh yeah, that one should be hype. I'm super hyped for that they're releasing that.
Awesome.
I didn't even know about that. But yeah, it's one of those things where I think your list is fine. For a Shadow Rider list, it looks very well in line, especially considering like the other Shadow Riders are expensive. I think single prize card decks really make a small portion of our metagame. So even if
yeah, for sure.
I think it's one of those things, if you were to add a Cresselia in there, you'd want to have multiple reasons to have those cards.
Yeah.
Is that card more important than playing Marshadow? Is that card more important than playing another Gengar and Mimikyu? And that's really where things get weighted down in a deck list. So just making sure that like every single card has a purpose.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense for sure.
So I'd say I'd relatively leave your deck as is. It seems fine. There are some interesting tags such as like Old Cemetery, whereas a lot of lists are running Path to the Peak. So if the Old Cemetery has been working well for you, that might be a cool way to get the extra damage on things like Sobble. Again, so I haven't necessarily tested Old Cemetery as much as you likely have. So it's one of those things, if Old Cemetery is working for you, and it's actually providing things in the matchup that you're losing against, or it's changing up your matchup spread, that's really where I'd recommend playing.
I've got the Old Cemetery in there because my other favorite deck list is actually Galarian Cursula and Sableye V.
That's definitely a fun one, getting the damage counters and going for that gigantic attack.
That one I built just because it was actually really fun. So I actually have this one built in a card version.
Okay.
So this is
totally see how this one would be a super fun deck.
Oh, it's absolutely fun. It's
crushing hammers and
crushing hammers and
this
flanneries.
I wouldn't want to play in a tournament.
Yeah,
it would be scary to face against.
It either works for you or works against you very quickly. But either way, it's very fun to play. But yes, I do stack the old cemeteries in there.
Got it. Yeah, so right now I think your list is fine. If you're looking for any inspiration, I can definitely provide some of my list that I've recently played at tournaments if that's something that you eventually want to build into.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
So I can definitely send those over. But yeah, let's add a game. I'll just send you what my in-game name is on Discord. It's just Z Lesage. I don't know if we've added each other yet. I'm really bad at PTCGO getting everyone added on there. Yeah, and just my last name, so Lesage, perfect. And I got it. So I'll play Malamar. I think Malamar is the most relevant.
Yeah, there's definitely a few people at my in-game tournaments who have been running Malamar. So.
For sure. So I'll shoot you over a challenge, and I'll turn off timers so we can discuss any of the plays that are going on.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, I just want to watch this first game, see exactly how you would play it out,
and
then kind of share exactly how I would play it out afterwards, and then we can walk through afterwards. If there's any questions that you have that are pressing, feel free to ask. I'm totally an open book, and no questions are really stupid when it comes to a session like this. I think if someone's gone out of their way to have a session with me, everything that I have here is, regardless of recorded or not, completely confidential between us.
Yeah, I guess I bust that line over, don't I?
Yeah. So I'm just going to call the coin flip, obviously not mattering. Whatever I choose, it's just going to be down to luck of whatever happens. And I'm also just going to write some quick notes.
Absolutely.
So if I'm ever quiet for 30 seconds, it's just because I'm just busy paper and pen. Okay. All right. I'll just kind of explain my plays where I'm at.
Yeah.
This is certainly, you can almost sense when you don't have another basic Pokemon down that it's going to be absolute doom for you with the Gengar to make you up active.
Yeah, it's not one you really want to be. I've definitely noticed with this deck, I want to be going second just so that, I can either Marnie or Professors if I have to.
Got it.
Which is strange because the balance doesn't seem to be that bad, the Pokemon to trainer to energy balance, but I quite often find I don't get a great start. RNG is not my friend.
I hear you there.
Yeah, see? Definitely not my friend. So at this stage, I would probably be trying, contemplating just GXing right off the bat, just to give me that extra chance to Marnie and maybe get more on my bench.
Sure.
Or would I be better off to give you that turn?
It all depends. So the way that I'm looking at it here is you got to be looking at kind of where you're trying to set up, but there's a certain point where this is kind of like the freebie dollar that's lying on the ground.
Yeah.
I have a 50 HP Pokemon that's sitting in front of you. I think it's really worthwhile to go for Horror House GX, and the reason is because I would just need to have 25%. I need to have 20% by the time I draw my card of cards that would just be trainer cards. Now, if you look at the average genetic makeup of most decks, most decks are approximately 50%.
So chances are you've got 2 trainer cards.
Exactly. For me to go from 20% to 50% seems very likely that I have a trainer card. And I try to look at Pokemon as black and white as possible. It's not just heart of the cards or anything like that. If 50% of my deck is approximately trainer cards, and for this deck, that seems very accurate. Like, this is a deck that only plays 6 water energies, right?
Yeah.
Or sorry, 6 just energies in general.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where my deck might even be more than 50%, not even looking at the deck list. So if you only need to hit 20% of trainers, there's a very real statistical chance that you just steal this game completely, like without blinking. Like, it'd be extremely unlikely for me not to have a trainer card in my hands.
Very
so that being said, take your turn, play out everything whenever possible.
Yeah.
And it's just going right back because obviously Horror House stops everything.
So then obviously I get to do that. And then because Marnie would give you less cards, I wouldn't Marnie.
Exactly. So I'm still. It doesn't matter if I had.
Oh, look at the bling! Look at that!
I just started blinging out the decks. We got a decent bit of it, but it's still patchy a little bit here.
Yeah.
So I think that game went relatively fine. So my notes for the game. I mean, it's only been a short game. So I think it's worthwhile for your deck to actually go first more often than not.
So even having that Cresselia there and having the potential for the first turn going second energy acceleration, you'd still say to go first?
Yeah, because Cresselia isn't really an integral part of the deck.
Yep.
You really want to it's more of a Shadow Rider deck than a Cresselia deck if you want to look at it like that.
Yeah.
In terms of Shadow Riders, let's not even look into Evolution Incense or anything else like that. There's 6 Shadow Rider cards in the deck that are core Shadow Rider cards. There's 1 Cresselia.
Yeah.
Shadow Rider is pulling to go first more often so you could evolve into your Shadow Rider Calyrex VMAX more.
Yeah.
And that's really where you want to just be getting those extra energies.
Mm-hmm.
On average, you'll be getting more energies in a game by going first ever get from going from Cresselia.
Okay.
Cresselia is a really good kind of Pokemon to fall into the clouds, if that makes sense. So if everything's not going well and you're able to go Cresselia and accelerate energies the same way that Volcanion decks or Fire decks have done for years, that's cool. Going second is fine.
Yeah.
But it's not like it's those Welder decks where it also wants to play Welder that Welder demands to go second.
Yeah.
So that's why decks like that would go second, whereas this deck really needs to evolve. The only exception, I think, in Mirror, it's slightly better to go second. So you could Horror House GX your opponent first and actually have the opportunity to evolve your Pokemon before your opponent can.
Yeah.
So all of it revolves around kind of evolving a Shadow Rider Calyrex as quickly as possible because Underworld Door is such an important ability.
Yes. Alright.
The only other note that I have is when you played your first Marnie, I think it actually would have been better to not play Marnie because it ended up taking cards out of my hands. I had 6 cards in my opening hand. So if you just went Horror House GX, attached energy Horror House GX, there's actually even a stronger point that I think I would have drawn a 7th card.
Yeah.
Or something like that. I could be slightly wrong, but in the moment I was like, oh, I don't think you should play Marty. I think I had maybe 5 cards in my opening hands. So it would have drawn me a 6th card, which would have been more than you ultimately got me. Either way, it doesn't matter because you had that Horror House GX and you won the game either way. But I guess it's more of just like a side note to look at potential win conditions.
No, that
just
completely makes
your normal
sense.
strategy if it's that probable that you win.
Yeah.
So we could try that one again.
Yeah, for sure. That was.
I kind of felt like I didn't play too much. But it just really shows the strength there of what Horror House GX is. And that's like one of those attacks where like that could have been a very real game. Like we could have hit each other on a limitless system. Just the Play Limitless tournament and played that matchup, and that's very well how it could have gone. Okay, I'm gonna call heads this time. Ooh, and I won the coin flip. So for me, thinking like the way that I always think about it, does my deck need to evolve? Yes. I really want to be going first, and that's usually how I decide to go first. Every deck's gonna have its own rules, but the same thing for you. Like your deck, you really want to evolve your Pokemon. Going first is pretty huge.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, I'm gonna get more than one Pokemon out here, so it's better than before.
So this is another one where I kind of struggle sometimes when I have the both of them. It's which one do I put out? Do I put out the Alcremie trying to go for the acceleration or the Calyrex?
So I find that I typically never use the Adornment attack unless things are going bad in the game or so good in the game. So in terms of anything, I wouldn't recommend using Alcremie unless you're using it against like Shadow Rider or another VMAX deck.
Yeah, or if you're trying to like avoid weakness.
Good against too many other decks. I mean, I'm sure there's going to be some ways that I think Sugary Sprinkles does well, or Adornment could be really cool. So look to identify ways that you could do well in a game.
Yeah.
But if you think about the Malamar deck, like you'd have to be pitching 2 energies.
Yeah.
In order to get a knockout, and it doesn't really matter how many energies you get. So you can kind of like start crossing things off your deck when you go into a matchup. So you might be like, you want to know what? Alcremie kind of sucks this matchup. Not really good.
Yeah.
And that's weird because it's majority like a VMAX tag team metagame. And the other side, you might be like, you want to know what? Cresselia is totally going up, kind of like the Stonks meme where you're like, you want to know what? Cresselia is going to do really good because it is a single prize card matchup. I have a single prize card Pokemon that can attack against these decks. And it's going to be very close to the amount of HP or close to whatever. So just kind of like, what I recommend is you go into matchups, maybe just even write like a little bit of a detail page of Pokemon that you're like, you want to know what? I played this matchup 5 times. This is where I struggle. This is why I'm struggling.
Yeah.
I think this strategy is going to work. These cards I've noticed are typically better in the matchup. So whatever you're looking for, those are really the cards, because I know when I'm playing a deck that has Shadow Rider that has Path to the Peak, I know that Path to the Peak is more important in the Luke Battle matchup because I can shut off Zamazenta V. So I might be like, you want to know what? When I'm searching through my deck, I'm going to double check and make sure that I have access to Path to the Peak this game.
Yeah.
So for you, you might be like, you want to know what? I'm going to pitch away all my Alcremies, because those are cards that are just quick ball fodder now.
Yeah.
And now I'm going to be searching through my deck for that Cresselia. I'm going to be searching my deck for that, whatever you're really looking for. Here you want to be searching for your Shadow Rider Calyrex. These, not only just to evolve, but just because Astral Barrage is a very good attack in this matchup. So, it's kind of my long rants. And I think it's always worthwhile to usually not bench Pokemon. There's really no drawback going second and not benching Pokemon. The worst I could do is play a reset stamp against you.
Yeah.
I could always play Escape Rope against you. So it's one of those things where you just kind of want to think about what's going on there.
Don't bench it just because it's in your hand.
Exactly. It also gives you more options, because let's say you got a Pokemon Communication or a Great Ball, or not a Great Ball, a Quick Ball. You might be like, oh, you want to know what? Now I have other options that I could potentially discard. They might not be the best options, but it's better to have more options just so you have a less opportunity to make mistakes on the grand scheme of things. So I'm debating how I want to start off my turn. I have access to Double Evolution Incense, a Fog Crystal, a Great Ball. I can't play a supporter, and then I have a Tower of Waters. I definitely want to get more Pokemon out so the same thing doesn't happen as last game.
Yeah.
Do I want to go Great Ball first, or do I want to go Fog Crystal first? So sequencing in the order that you play your cards is really important. I know that if I go Fog Crystal first and just grab a Pokemon, there's a lesser chance of me hitting a Pokemon with Great Ball. Same thing if I played Evolution Incense. So naturally in this scenario, Great Ball is the best card to play first.
That makes sense because you're listening the amount of Pokemon in there, less chance there's going to be one in the top of your deck.
Exactly. I always try to look at it
very mathematically.
Deck, right? Right? And just like, if the doctor's like, yo, Zach, do you want a 50% chance to live or a 51% chance to live? I'm like, I'm going with the 51 every single time, right?
Yeah.
So that's really where just like putting the odds in your favor, and people are like, oh, how does that pro player really always increase their chance, or why are they always in top cut? It's because it's these little actions that happen every single turn. I think we were going over single prizes, right?
Yes, and I haven't been up against a single prize deck since.
Got it. Yeah, I
Typical.
think single prize card decks they like pop up here and there, but like mostly they're like bottom tier decks. Really,
Yeah.
the decks that are the most important are going to be the VV Max centric decks,
Hmm.
especially because they can have a lot of things going around. So, um, for the remainder of everything today, do you want to go over single prize card decks, or is there something else that you had in mind?
I'm quite happy for just, whatever generalized kind of hints, tips.
Sure.
Yeah, like
Because
obviously
you
I've
want
been watching a lot of your lives and the tournaments and stuff, so I'm slowly starting to get an idea of like how you approach your games.
sure.
Um,
Well,
so
I
yeah,
mean,
it's
I
definitely
think
been
let's
eye opening.
yeah, I'm glad that I could help out whenever possible. I mean, I just try to do the live streams. We're really trying to push hard on the zone to get affiliated. Fingers crossed that all of our numbers work by midnight. So that's 57 minutes here. But it's one of those things. It's one of those things where my whole goal when it comes to sequencing, I think like if anyone's starting off, a lot of it comes from getting into the habit of speaking out loud, and whether that means like you're talking to your computer or you're talking to a Twitch stream.
I've definitely
That
noticed, like yesterday, so I recorded all of my battles for your tournament. I definitely
sure.
noticed, I don't know, like more accountability for for each move that I made because I was recording and like talking out loud. Whereas if I'm just sat playing, you kind of just do stuff for the sake of it.
Exactly. No, and I think that's a great idea. It's this the scariest thing about Pokemon is not knowing where your mistakes are coming from.
Yeah.
Because I think it's really easy when we're like, ah, shoot, we used a dead AGX under Path to the Peak. You feel like an idiot for a moment. And like we all have that moment where we just completely gap out, or the play is right in front of us and somehow we miss it. Even if there's people in stream, people in the comments, whatever, telling you what it is, that happens to everyone. I think that's a natural part of the game.
Yeah.
Beyond that, I think it's one of those things where trying to find where those unknown mistakes are coming from and really trying to correct the course. I think really the main thing is probably when it comes into a game, I like to consider it like kind of driving. That's the way that I always consider a game, especially when there's three prize card Pokemon in play.
Yep.
It would not make sense to knock out a three prize card Pokemon, a one prize card Pokemon, a one prize card Pokemon, then go for a three prize card Pokemon. And that's the same way that like if you're going to school, whether or not you drive or take the bus or anyone who's like even walking, you're not going to take the furthest walk, like the furthest distance drive to your destination on your
Yeah.
daily commute. Or if there's a convenience store across the street from you, you're not going to like walk around this other side of your building and then do a U-turn 5 kilometers this way, 5 kilometers that way. But I think that's really how a lot of players get confused when it comes to Pokemon, and that's kind of where they're at when they play. They're like, I'm just going to be attacking Pokemon. These seem like the best places to be attacking, or these seem to be the best energy or places to put my energies. And I think like the first thing is coming up with like a rough game plan going into any kind of game. So understanding like turn one being like I can't knock out any Pokemon, but my opponent has this Pokemon in play, this Pokemon in play, this Pokemon in play. If I knock out all three of those, I'll bench my opponent out and win the game. As the game progresses, reevaluating that plan, getting yourself the most efficient and effective way to draw all your prize cards that's also reasonable. So kind of the smart, like the SMART kind of things, doing that on a game by game basis and understanding where you need to be per turn, where you need to be per end goal, and then kind of finding the wiggle room in between. So if you want to shoot me over a challenge, we can just try to like, I can kind of showcase what that means. Or like kind of explain to it where it's going on your side. You're playing Shadow Rider, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Cool. Cool. I won't pick Eternatus or anything. It's always a fun matchup. Actually, sorry, do you mind just shooting me one without timers just in case?
Oh, yep. Sorry. That makes
No worries, I don't want
sense.
to be talking in that. The timer goes out or something. Perfect. I'll just play like a normal ADP-zation deck. I think that seems quite fine.
So how
I
do
think
you
that's
feel about rotation?
Well, I've been playing Poke since 2005, so rotation to me is something that I'm not necessarily worried of. It's not my first time at the rodeo, as some might say.
Yep.
I think we're losing a lot of valuable cards,
Oh,
especially
absolutely.
like we got to think about it. The dynamic of our game has changed completely. Like that GX marker that a lot of people carry around
Yeah.
is really going to be tossed into the bin. Um, that's kind of a huge like game breaking thing. It sounds so stupid that it's just a counter and stuff like that. I know it's kind of artificial,
Well,
but
it's an
attacks that
entire
can change the course of the
like
game
move, isn't
are just
it? Yeah.
yeah.
Like
So I mean, it's a bigger rotation than we're usually used to because we
Mhm.
haven't necessarily had other game breaking mechanics like that in the past. And I
Yeah.
mean, GX attacks like a Gengar Mimic, you can stop an opponent on turn one, knock out an opponent's Pokemon, and then you just take the game.
Mm.
Propelling in GX, as we saw in the Players' Cup Invitational, is just kind of come out like stopping your opponent for an entire turn and being like, we don't have attacks like that anymore. So
And
just
I,
losing those powerful attacks means we need to find other things.
yeah.
Maybe our decks need more consistency, draw power, things like that. I
I feel
think
like
definitely
draw power is definitely like, especially like losing welder and fire crystals and things like that. The Denes. I mean, obviously, like you've got Crobat, but there's a lot of good supporters going down.
exactly. Well, luckily, like our main kind of three, the Marty's boss research combo still stays in,
Mhm.
so we're good there. Um, Beyond that, it's really just like I think the game's probably going to pick up a lot once Fusion Strike comes out. Our November or like our late October, November set is usually our best set every single year.
Okay.
That's kind of the one that kicks off the first international championships. Obviously, I don't think we're going to see one in November this year,
Yeah.
but it really kind of pushes us forward with kind of making those game-breaking sets. So in previous years, Cosmic Eclipse was that set. I mean, this past year, Vivid Voltage was that set, so we'll skip that year. But Cosmic Eclipse, Lost Thunder, it's been some of the biggest sets that we've seen released. So I think it's really just getting used to it. A lot of decks finding what does well right now. That's kind of rotation safe. I think we've seen Ice Rider looks pretty rotation safe.
Yeah.
And Inteleon Battle deck seems rotation safe. Even things like Shadow Riders seem rotation safe. There was that $10,000 event in New Jersey that some players decided to attend to. I wasn't in attendance, but there was a lot of Shadow Riders at the top tables. Of course, Evolving Skies is going to change that. But we have to go with the like mere glimpses that we have into that format and be like, okay, you want to know what? These are what we can kind of go on with. Rayquaza seems pretty good. That's everyone's hunch. And then really like kind of tying those all together to kind of form a meta game. There's only
Yeah,
so many
because
decks
it'll
that are
be
incompatible.
what is it, Rayquaza and Flaffy, isn't it?
Yeah, that it sounds really good because if history repeats itself, there was literally an Electric with Dynamotor and a
Yeah.
Rayquaza EX with the same attack. So they literally spiritually reprinted the entire deck again.
Wow.
So cool stuff. I mean, you can always look back because history often repeats itself. Kind of jumping into my turn, my whole plan here is I need to get set up with my altered creation. That's kind of my first goal. If there's any of like those frozen dinners or TV dinners, I try to do that with Pokemon too, on a turn-by-turn basis. So doing things in the correct order.
Yep.
Obviously, I wouldn't stir before I could heat up my food, otherwise it'd be frozen. Some of that stuff is no-brainers, but I think getting Pokemon as close to that as possible. That being said, I try to go with the freest search in my hand, so I have Cherish Ball and Quick Ball. Cherish Ball means I don't have to discard a card, so it's less of a cost. Less of an opportunity cost for me to search my deck. Obviously, don't use any of these rules like set in stone.
Oh, obviously. I mean, everything's situational. But it's good just to have, things to think of.
Yeah, a rule of thumb that's just like, you want to know what this seems like a pretty decent idea. So I'm going to grab an ADP because I'm not playing the ADP Moltres or it's just ADP's Zacian. So I need to go for the Altered Creation checks in this matchup. And my plan is going to be knocking out two prize card attackers that are worth 3 prize card Pokemon.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously that's the plan for most ADP Zacian decks, but should be pretty simple. I do have the option to go use one of my Quick Balls to Maul Value. Considering you started with one of your tech Pokemon, Alcremie V, most players would not start with a Pokemon like that. They'd start with one of their more main Pokemon, like a Shadow Rider Calyrex V, or something like that. Also, if you started like a Dedenne GX or a Crobat, that would not be a good time to Marnie. So it tells me that your hand has limited basic Pokemon.
Yeah.
If not, that's your only basic Pokemon. So using Mawile right now would be a strategic waste.
Yeah.
And I don't think you're going to start with a incorrect Pokemon. Like Alcremie V is not bad, but you wouldn't blindly start it in any matchup because sometimes its effectiveness is not there.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say that you don't have any other basic Pokemon in your hands, just off the top of my head. So I'm going to leave the Mawile for another turn or any of my other techs. I'm just going to go ADP down. I have a Water Energy. I checked that I had other 3 Water Energy or other 2 Water Energies in my deck. So making sure that I can actually attach that one in case you do play like a Crushing Hammers, which is finding its way out of the metagame. Just to be safe, I mean, you can never be too precautious when it comes to Pokemon. Drop the Zacian, and then I'm going to go for Intrepid Sword. So not a bad turn, especially going first, I can't complain.
Yeah. So ideally here, I need to get a V.
Sure.
And I need to get the Alcremie, which is, you know, heavy weakness, out of the active. That's my thoughts for that.
Yeah, I think the Alcremie doesn't necessarily have to come out of the active this turn, because next turn, my next goal is using Altered Creation GX. So you have a little bit more wiggle room there than you might think.
Yeah,
so
no,
you might not
that's
need to do
fair.
it this turn, but eventually, yeah, Alcremie V is not going to be the big Pokemon.
Because, yeah, well, that makes sense, because if I can leave it there, I could potentially VMAX onto myself.
Yeah. And I mean, putting them in the VMAX is really not going to change too much about this strategy.
Yeah.
It might give you more attacking presence in this matchup. I know Zacian can knock you out in one hit,
Yeah.
but I mean, it doesn't matter if I'm drawing 3 prize cards or 4 prize cards at that point.
Yeah.
If I'm knocking it out, I'm knocking it out.
Yeah.
So that seems like a bit of a rough go, hand-wise.
You should have seen some of the first hands I drew yesterday.
I feel you. I watched. I was watching out all the games play for the top 16 onward, and there was a lot of this format. Seems like a little bit. It's very hit or very miss.
Like
that's okay. Obviously, you can't control.
I just scraped through to the Swiss second round.
Gotcha.
And the only reason I ended up getting more
that's
points
an accomplishment
is
in
because I got
itself,
a buy.
though. I mean, getting there is not bad. It's half the battle.
Yeah. Oh, look, I definitely felt accomplished. The fact that I could go up against a Eternatus and I actually managed to get the win, I was pretty happy with that.
We take those all day, every day.
Yeah,
I mean, you're probably going to beat the Rapid Strike Urshifus.
Yeah, I beat
more
that
often
one.
than not because they're weak to Psychic, but
Yeah.
when you beat a deck that you're weak against, it certainly feels a lot more justified.
Yes. And I was 50-50 against other Shadow Rider decks. I think it becomes a lot less skill and a lot more who has the better draw when it's Shadow versus Shadow.
Sometimes, yeah. There's a few like minute things that you could be doing that would really that can like shape it up or scrape a few percentages here or there, but if you're gonna start like this and I'm just ripping Underworld doors or something like that, it's gonna probably be in my favor.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still pretty happy with my hand the way it is. I have pretty much everything that I could ever want. So I'm just gonna go ahead here and go switch. Still, I have them all wild in my hand. I don't think it's worthwhile to play it. I think if you had another Pokemon, you'd probably play it down.
Yeah.
If you had a Dedenne, I don't think you'd be passing. And maybe like some players do, they get really scared of ADP. You gotta play within your limits. I'm gonna use Altered and try to shape the game up to win in the next like 2 turns.
So here I'm thinking bosses probably isn't really something that's very useful to me right about now.
No, my deck's filled with like Switch and Escape Rope, and even like I can move an energy and all that stuff. So I have a lot of mobility. So Boss's Orders isn't really going to stall me. Boss's Orders would be much more powerful late game. Also, you could look at something like the energy retrieval that you have in your hands.
Yeah.
So when it comes between discarding cards, I always like looking at it the morbid. Choosing out of a burning building or something like that.
Yeah, I would naturally try and go for like the discard the energy if it was in my hands.
Yeah. So I try to look at it and I'm like, you want to know what? Boss gives you potentially more options to play cards.
What even
Because
is
at least you
this?
can't play that energy, like you can't play the energy retrieval until late game, kind of. So that's kind
Yeah.
of where I go back and forth with it.
And I'm gonna Marnie just because.
Yeah, the lack of energies in that hand is a little bit rough. Where are they, right?
Yeah, right? Ideally, I'm hoping to energy into an energy would be really nice. And considering
Yeah,
I run quite a few in there, perfect.
I mean, this isn't bad at all.
No, I don't I'm gonna keep that one. I'll go that way. I'll leave that for now.
Yeah, I mean that's using a dormant there is a decent strategy to get around things. I mean, it's a lot better return than I thought it was going to be originally.
Yeah.
Okay, so my plan here is going to be pretty simple. You martied me into a really bad hand. I want to win the game or put myself as close, so I need to try to take a prize card every single turn. Obviously, I'm not going to be able to get the knockout in front of me because we evolved and gained 140 HP, a little bit too much for my ADP to handle. So I'm just going to slap on the water energy, and boss's orders up the Crobats. Which I think is probably, like, that's the best thing because it puts me at drawing a prize card every single turn, which puts you on a really short clock.
Yeah.
You win the game in minimum of 3 turns, whereas I win the game in a minimum of 2 turns.
Yeah.
So I'm very much on track. If I just power out my Zacian, I put myself in a really good spot to either stop you from using turns or putting yourself into a checkmate situation with your Alchemy VMAX. So that's it's kind of my game plan. Really not much else that I can do. So, I mean, obviously I can't be like, oh, you want to know what? I'm going to play this, the Den AGX now and get fully set up.
Yeah.
My hand just doesn't have that right now. So we're going to go Ultimate Ray and make it happen. And I have the choice between attaching a water and a metal, but obviously I'm just trying to keep my my energy resources allocated type-wise. Zacian needs 3 metals, rather attach the waters to ADP.
Yeah, because, Zacian doesn't accept colorless, that's right.
I was really hoping to grab something for my prize cards. I didn't get anything. I actually didn't do a great job of checking through my prize cards. I only checked for specific cards. But I should have had a more clear expectations of what I could have been drawing.
Yeah.
So that's one of those things, like, a lot of players look at prize cards and they're like, oh yeah, I knocked out a Pokemon. But they don't actually look at them and be like, oh, I could potentially draw into this. Because you can make plays depending on the prize cards that you're drawing. Especially if you know what's prized or not.
So again, hoping to, energy into energy being the ideal kind of.
I think that's fair. Yeah, I think you'd have to go for the Marnie at this point.
Yeah.
So I guess it comes down to if there's anything that you can do that could potentially slow me down. You have, what, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 times 3 is, you're doing 220, I think. Off the top of my head, 7 times 3, 210 plus 10.
One more.
250.
So it's still not enough. Yeah, it'd be enough for Zacian, but obviously you don't have the Zacian out.
And I mean, you could retreat into Alcremie and pitch.
But see, the thing is if I retreat out to Alcremie and hit ADP, you instantly win because you just come in and knock me for weakness.
And that's not to be like I tried to set up a Grandmaster plan. My deck basically allowed me to do it.
Yeah.
So it's best to try to stay alive as long as possible. I think.
So at this point, it's just kind of take a bit of chip on the ADP. It's probably the best.
Yeah. Don't try to, like, at this point, we could pretty clearly be like, I've lost. You could be like, I've lost the game, or
Oh, yeah.
I assume I've lost the game. But I think you then change the name of the game to, how many turns can I prolong this game?
Yeah.
Instead of being like, I'm going to instantly lose. Because we've all seen those situations where someone's disconnected, or someone makes a really fancy play and decks out,
Yeah.
or calculation is wrong, or there's something else that everyone else can't see. Like, we've seen people throw games, or there's kind of natural causes in games and stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, I've nearly done the same thing myself with this deck because I keep forgetting that it's 10 plus. So when I calc it at 30 each, and I'm like, damn it, I need that one more energy. And it's like, no, that's actually perfect. Like, it does that extra 10 damage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I just got the boss chilling here. So I got the retreat and the big knockout due to weakness. So I mean, this is just one of those like picture perfect ADP games where it's 4 turns total, and you weren't able to stop me in those 4 turns because your hand was a little bit slower, and that's cool too because that could totally just happen to anyone.
Yeah.
But I think it's like kind of just going through the process of that game. I don't think you made any mistakes at all. There was one questionable play though, and you got to ask yourself. There was that turn where you attached to your Shadow Rider V on the bench. Then you evolved, leaving your hand without energies. Sometimes it's worthwhile to miss the energy attachment to get the Underworld door off.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, but I don't know, I guess there's like so many manias and stuff, like I very rarely expect to be able to keep a hand.
Sure.
You know.
I think that's fine. But also, if you're worried about me Marnieing you, ADP Zacian typically does not play Marnie.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one of those things where I think like it's really easy to understand what's going on when it's limitless and you're looking at a deck in front of you and you're like, oh, I can see exactly every card that's in my opponent's deck list.
Yeah.
I don't have to research what's going on.
Yeah.
But when we're playing like at a local league or something or anything else like that, you don't necessarily know what's going on with your opponent's hand every single time or what's going on with their deck or things like that.
Mm.
So I think, like, not to say that you need any more knowledge about Pokemon decks, but I think it's a really good idea to maybe choose 3 of your favorite content creators or 3 of your favorite players, find their lists, find, like, kind of what a common list looks like, and be like, you want to know what? I'm playing against an ADP deck. I'd say there's, like, a 90% chance that they don't play Marnie, and if they do, they only play 1. I know this energy is likely safe in my hand, but you want to know what? Even if it's not safe in my hand, if my opponent Marnies me, they refreshed my hand and my hand sucked anyways.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a bonus.
Absolutely, yeah.
So that's kind of where I'd go. Like, I think doing a lot of research on decks can really add a lot because like all these small plays I think are a lot bigger than a lot of people think.
Mm-hmm.
And any play can look really easy or anything else like that. But when you start like being like, I try to ask myself every single turn, why am I playing this card? Because I try to stop myself before, it's like looking both ways before you cross the street.
Yeah.
So if you just stop yourself and you're like, you want to know what, why am I attaching this energy? Does it make sense for me to attach this energy? You'd probably be like, you want to know what, I could use Underworld Door next turn. Because that thought's always looming in the back of people's heads. But when you already attach it, you don't necessarily have the opportunity to think like that. And I mean, I'm not going to sit here and like lament on an energy. I very well could have attached the energy to it and been like, you want to know what? I have a 70% chance of drawing a supporter or an energy or a quick ball or some way to get out of this hand. And I think you actually did draw the quick ball. But in the moment, I was like, oh, you want to know what? It's not like, questionable is not a bad play. It's just like, it's one of those things where you chose one path over the other.
Yeah.
I think that's really what defines players. And I try to always look towards looking at all options, even if the options are worse, and then determining which one I think is the best one at that point.
No, makes sense, definitely. Much appreciate all of your help and assistance and...
Yeah, no worries at all. I know this part's a little bit... 30 minutes sounds like a lot of time when you're doing a lot of stuff, but sometimes it just ends up being like a game of Pokemon. Even that game can last 4 turns, but out of the even like during 4 turns of play, I think there's just so many things that can change in a game.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you can make or break any game in a turn.
Exactly.
I mean,
I completely agree with you there.
Yeah, I made an absolute beauty of a misclick yesterday. I was trying to retreat into, like, swap out to my Shadow Rider and swapped out to an Alcremie with, you know, no energy, no air balloon, nothing. It was just like my mouse just like decided to jump to the side. I was like, well, GG.
Oh, that's painful. I remember during my Players Cup 3 run, I was like 3-0 at the time, and I was going into a game. I actually welded onto the wrong Pokemon.
Yeah.
So it was like one of those things that like I'm in the action. I'm like I'm literally sitting here clicking the mouse too fast.
Well, yeah, that was exactly like what I realized. I was like, I need to like, yes, okay, just slow down with the clickings.
And it's tough because like in real life, you wouldn't just necessarily like drop a card out of your hand onto the wrong Pokemon and make a game-breaking mistake.
Yeah.
Or anything else like that. I mean, it could happen, but I mean, it's less likely than online.
Yeah.
So I mean, I just try to chalk it up into being like, someone's gonna get struck by lightning someday, or you're gonna get into a car accident, someone's gonna rear end you, or anything could really happen, and it's almost humbling at that point. So I just try to chalk it up to a natural disaster kind of thing. I mean, if it's something that you consistently make a habit of, it's something to note down or write down as a note. I'm also a huge advocate of writing notes. I think you kind of have to have that positivity sandwich. Be like, you want to know what? In my game, I did this because of this. So be like, I searched through my prize cards correctly. I made sure I could identify 5 out of the 6 of my prize cards. I made sure whatever. Although, you want to know what? I did make this misplay where you could be like, oh, I sent up the Alcremie, so that might be you're playing a little bit too quick. You just need to slow your play down half a second, and then finish it off with something else like that. Basically highlighting all the mistakes you make over games and highlighting all the things that you're doing very well over games or that you identify that you're doing well over games. And then once you focus on that and you're being like, you want to know what? I'm going to make sure that I take a 1-second breath every single time before I send up a Pokemon. Just to make sure that I am not rushing through a game or just jumping dangerously in front of misplays or stuff like that.
Yeah.
Something like that can really boost your win rate 1 or 2%. And if you boost your win rate 1 or 2% by a bunch of things, and it might be like, you want to know what, I attach the energy to the wrong Pokemon, or I'm not playing this matchup correctly, or whatever you can identify as mistakes. I think writing those down and really focusing on them. And once you run out of mistakes, I mean, you're going to be at a position where I've never ran out of mistakes. I start forgetting the things that I've already learned, and then vice versa. So
yeah, you start, almost getting complacent in certain things.
Exactly. No, I definitely know when there's games where I'm playing on my absolute best, and there's games where I'm just like casually playing Pokemon. So writing those down sounds like a great idea. And then like I also like to like sort that in some kind of like guide for each deck, so you can learn what strategies work against certain decks and whatnot. But that's kind of where I'm at when it comes down to it. So well, that's my best piece of advice.
Honestly, I really do appreciate all of the advice, all of the hints and tips. It has been an absolute pleasure, and there's a very high chance that sometime in the near future I'll probably be grabbing another hour off here. And that's the end of my 1-hour coaching with Pokemon TCG player Zach Lesage. I hope you learned some great thought processes, order of operations, or just enjoyed watching. Make sure to check him out on any of his social platforms through the links shown here. I'll also pop the links in the description. If you're interested in playing Pokemon TCG online, enter his tournaments held every Monday, 9 PM Eastern Standard Time. I had an absolute blast making this video and hope you all enjoyed it as well.